It's a decades-old mystery.
This is a view from the south side of the crime scene. Approximately where Officer Grubai is now is the approximate location of the body.
All leads had been exhausted.
Why can't I solve this case? Why can't I find out who killed this 15-year-old girl?
How could the killer just do this and disappear?
Karen Stitt was just 15 when she was brutally murdered on her way to a bus stop in Sunnyvale, California, in Silicon Valley.
Dumped at the base of a cinder block wall behind some bushes, her hands and her legs bound with her own clothes.
Raped, stabbed over 50 times, and left to bleed to death by a monster.
To cross paths with an evil predator on such a short window of time is like a lightning strike.
When someone is murdered, it's like a whole world has been destroyed.
It changed all of our lives forever.
For every family member and friend who never got answers, there are investigators still haunted by the case they never closed.
It was a case that hung over their heads for decades.
It was in their neighborhood, happened on their watch. They wanted it solved.
Decades after Karen Stitt's murder, one determined cop, Detective Matt Hutchison, takes her case on.
But I was reading a newspaper one day and I saw this article about this Sunnyvale cop who had posed as a busboy to gather DNA evidence to solve a cold case. And I thought, this is kind of cool. Sounds like a TV show or something.
Matt never gives up, and he will use every avenue available to him to solve the crime.
He's willing to kind of get down in the muck to do whatever it takes to find these people.
He will bust tables, and he will collect trash, and he will get his fortune told. Matt will do anything to identify these killers.
For every story, there's a villain and a hero. And I think Matt is the hero in this story.
You're gonna work these cases until they're solved, or it's gonna break you.
Matt Hutchison, who goes by Hutch, has made arrests in no less than 7 cold cases, leading some to use a different nickname for him, Badass Detective.
I was born and raised in the city of Sunnyvale. Grew up like any other kid, playing Little League and all the sports that I could.
I asked Matt what he was like as a kid, and he says, I guess you could say I was willful. I was a willful kid.
I'm the youngest of 3 boys, so I had to keep up. I had to get a quick wit to defend myself quite a bit.
He went to high school probably 5 miles from where he does his police work. Then he went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is a few hours down the road. So he's very much a local guy.
You didn't start off wanting to be a cop. What was your original plan?
I majored in history, and I thought that I was going to be a high school history teacher, maybe coach golf or football. And while I was in college, I realized I probably don't have the patience to be teaching high school kids. My stepfather worked for the city of Sunnyvale as a police officer for 30+ years.
Oh, wow.
And he kind of guided me down that path and said, you need to consider public safety, and I think it'd be a fit for you, and it was.
It's a unique program in all of the United States. Every officer there is a fully trained police officer, EMT, and firefighter.
Basically what that means is that everybody who signs up to be a cop also signs up to be a firefighter and an EMT.
A lot of people want to either be cops or firefighters. It definitely takes a special person that wants to do both sides of the house.
Which one do you like best? What's the difference?
I would say that when you're a firefighter, they wave to you with all 5 fingers instead of just their favorite middle one when you're on patrol.
So we worked on graveyard patrol together, 8 p.m. to 7 a.m., so true nighttime hours.
Corinne is a lot like me. We're like-minded. We're 1 and 2 trying to push each other. If she made an arrest, I need to go out and make 2, and vice versa. My goal on Graveyard was to be as active as I possibly could. I wanted to get as much experience as quickly as I could because I knew that I wanted to get into investigations. I applied 3 times before I was selected.
Once he finally makes it to investigations, Hutch, now Detective Hutch, finally finds his calling with a little inspiration from an unexpected source.
I was looking around for something to keep me busy and keep my mind engaged, and one of my husband's friends was a captain at DPS, the Department of Public Safety.
They put her on a filing duty. And after a certain amount of time, maybe a few months, she went to one of the sergeants and said, basically, this is really boring. Can you give me something a little more interesting to do? He said, yeah, I got something might interest you.
The detective that took me to the cold case room, he asked me to come back to the bureau to organize the closet and the files.
Your original goal was to make it all more streamlined,
Yes.
organized,
Yes.
more manageable.
Yes. Initially, I was putting them together for the investigator, but I got so drawn in.
Were you prepared to see the violent nature in these files?
No, not at all.
Carol told me that she was just horrified. She told herself, these people can't get away with this, whoever did this.
I'm not going to solve it, and I know that, but I'm hoping that I can put the data together to give to a detective that can solve it, or at least make more headway or eliminate more people.
For the most part, they were not getting worked. And all of a sudden, here comes Matt. It's like he hadn't found his true mission, and then all of a sudden, he found it.
Cold cases are cold for a reason. What made you think that you could solve those?
They get under your skin, they bury into your heart, and you wanna solve them so badly that you can't just put them down. The very first day that I opened the cold case closet door, there were boxes stacked 6 feet high, filing cabinets with loose papers and things all over them.
It's such a dramatic scene. It was like the attic that you've not gone up into for 30 years. There was one folding chair, so he sat on the little folding chair with the files, and he would have a legal pad and on one knee, and he'd be taking notes.
So many of these boxes representing lives lost.
It was just him, total silence, back there with the files, back there with the ghosts.
When I became a detective and I told my stepfather I was interested in the cold cases, he said, you have to work Karen Stitt. She's a 15-year-old girl who was abducted, stripped nude, bound, and sexually assaulted, and left in an alleyway.
Blood stains are here and on the other side of the wall.
Every detective over the years, when they look at that case, that's the case you want to solve. If you're going to work any of them, you want to solve that one.
Little does he know, it'll take him another 5 years and traveling 2,500 miles, teaming up with library ladies and a mom on a laptop, going undercover to visit a psychic to close in on the killer of Karen Stitt. It's a sunny September morning, and a truck driver is making a delivery to a local garden center. He sees something in the bushes. What did he discover?
Initially, he thought he was seeing a mannequin and didn't think twice about it.
It wasn't a mannequin.
No, it was a young girl. What we're approaching right now is the wall where she's eventually found. All this was completely different in 1982, so this is a driveway that goes down an alley, and this wall extends about 20 to 30 feet down this alley.
Her body was found right behind this wall?
Yeah, there used to be a large hedge and a bunch of bushes that lined the wall, and she was concealed between the bushes and the wall itself, laying on her side, looking out.
You used this alleyway when you were a kid?
Yeah, so I would get stuck at this red light here, and I would cut through the alley and find my way back out onto El Camino. I wasn't one for patience and waiting at red light, so I found a way around. My thoughts of this alley changed dramatically when I realized what happened here.
You have to work?
Yeah, finally. In this case, they did a scene walkthrough where they actually videotaped it.
About how far is this west of the body, Jim?
About 40 feet.
So I can see exactly what they saw.
Blue jeans, belt, more cosmetics, lipstick.
There was blood on the wall behind her body, and then up above her, there was more blood on top of the wall.
Blood stains are here and on the other side of the wall.
The brutality of this crime was over the top. She was stabbed over 50 times in the chest and sexually assaulted. She was nude. She had her hands and her legs bound with her own clothes.
Leaves near the victim's feet were disturbed, which suggested she had been thrown there still alive.
It's certainly the most graphic and violent scene that I've seen in my career.
The voice that we hear narrating the crime scene video, who is that?
That's Bruce Dudley. As the lead crime scene investigator, he was the one directing all the evidence items that were collected. He managed that entire crime scene. He actually told me that this case has given him nightmares for years because he wanted the case solved so badly.
Object here appears to be a makeup pencil, eyeliner.
Personal items of hers were strewn about where she was found.
A brown-colored compact.
They went through the crime scene and took painstaking care to preserve everything they thought might be usable someday down the road.
And that will be branch 5.
They were collecting branches from the bushes that she had been brushed up against. They were taking blood samples, soil samples. They collected every one of her personal items that they could find on scene. There was a wallet that was kind of underneath her body. Inside the wallet was her Social Security card that listed her name, Karen Stitt.
Karen Stitt was a high school girl that lived in Palo Alto, about 20 minutes north of Sunnyvale.
As investigators focus on the crime scene in the alleyway, their fellow officers monitor the perimeter to keep the public out.
One of those officers on the perimeter got approached by a young man asking questions about, hey, what's going on? What's with all the police activity? The officer eventually asked, well, who are you? What are you doing here? And he said, I'm David Woods, and I was here last night. I was dropping off my girlfriend in this area. Her name's Karen Stitt.
We had just moved out there this summer. It was a pretty amazing place to land at. Shortly after is when I met Karen. I was 16 and Karen was 15.
I was with Karen when she met David. We were at the mall, and I vaguely remember her meeting a boy with a baseball cap on, and from there she continued seeing him.
I think I could call it a love at first sight. She just really swept me off my feet, and we were just instantly a couple at that point. It was just pure bliss, really. We'd go out wandering around. One place I remember, there was a Tower Records. You're flipping through records and albums. We're both into rock music. I had definitely a wide variety of tastes. I know she liked a lot of what I did too.
On the last night of her life, Karen takes the number 22 bus from Palo Alto to Sunnyvale for a date with David.
David met her at the bus stop.
He played video games at a 7-Eleven.
I got really good at this one called Defender.
They went to a miniature golf course.
And then we walked over to our new house and met with my parents and sister briefly. We went up to my room and I played some guitar for her. I was big into guitar then. And after a while, we went back out and just hung out at this little elementary school that was close to the house. We lost track of time a little bit and hustled off toward the bus stop.
He was worried that he was going to bust curfew.
I was kind of on thin ice about that, with my parents always coming in a little late.
He's got to get her back to the bus stop because he's got to get back home.
We got close enough to see the corner where the bus stop was at Wolf and El Camino. And, we kissed goodnight, and she grabbed my ball cap, which was, a prize to her. She knew that was kind of a part of me, as I'd always have it. And it's like, okay, I'll get it back from you tomorrow.
The first sign that something is wrong comes when David gets an early morning call. Family and friends are looking for Karen. She never came home.
I got a call wondering if Karen was still at my place, that she didn't come back last night. And, I got dressed and went down, picked up the bus at the same spot.
David heads to Palo Alto to retrace her steps, but there's no sign of Karen. His worry growing, he makes the return trip home.
When I got off the bus, when I started walking down the road and I see the crime scene taped off, then I'm a little more concerned. So I approached one of the uniformed officers that was there asking what's going on. And at that point, they pretty much whisked me away.
He was the last person to see her alive.
And when cops search David at the police station, they find something that only heightens their suspicions.
When you're 6 hours into a homicide investigation, you have to follow that lead.
Then they discover that he lied to his mom on the morning after Karen's murder.
They're looking at him saying, well, he's not exactly credible.
It was right around this area that Karen Stitt, just 15 years old, says goodnight to her boyfriend. He turns and runs in that direction to make curfew. She heads in the opposite direction, around the corner, to catch her bus. But the bus comes and goes, and Karen never gets on.
Karen was bright and kind and beautiful. My brother was her father. Karen was the third child.
She was the baby of the family.
She was. She was born prematurely. She weighed less than 6 pounds and really wasn't expected to live. But she was strong, and she grew into a thriving baby and a happy child. So from the very beginning, she was a fighter. This one's dated 1972, and she's in her brownie outfit. So she would have been 5 there. And here, I remember this is their house in Pittsburgh, where she was raised, sitting on the couch in their living room. And then this final picture is her with her sister. This is Suzanne in the front, Karen in the middle, and a family friend, Susan.
Her mother and father divorced?
Yes, they divorced, and my brother first moved to Georgia and then took a job in California, living in Palo Alto.
And then at 14 years old, Karen's life is hit with tragedy when her mother, Kathy, takes her own life. What impact did that have on Karen?
I can only imagine what it's like to lose a parent in any circumstance at such a young age. But she was lucky she had the support of her family, and particularly her older sister, Suzanne, who just adored her.
After her mother's death, Karen moves to California to live with her father full-time.
She went out there and was immediately enrolled in school and seemed to be doing great.
She went to Palo Alto Senior High School, or Pally. She came in halfway through what would have been her freshman year.
We just clicked, started hanging out, swapped numbers, and just became really tight friends.
Karen was definitely a person that once you met her, she was just like no other girl that I had ever met before.
We were either always on the phone or together, out doing what 15-year-olds do, hanging at the mall, being girls. We weren't afraid to take walks to the store, ride the buses by ourselves. It was just easy living at that time.
As the summer ended, she was in love. She was about to start a new school year. Was this a new life for her?
I think it was. She was excited about the future and about the possibilities.
But Karen's sudden murder stuns her friends and family.
One of her shoes is up to the right, underneath the limb there.
It was just unthinkable that something like that could happen.
The leaves appear to be pushed back during the struggle.
She didn't want to believe it, like it couldn't be true.
Where the other 2 subjects are standing is about where the body was located.
And you see that there are monsters out there. It changed all of our lives forever.
As they search to identify the monster who killed Karen, police are locked in on the one person they know she was with the night before, David Woods.
And at that point, they pretty much whisked me away, took me down to their station for questioning.
What did officers find in his pocket?
When he came in for questioning, it's common to just do a cursory search of him to make sure he doesn't have any weapons. And when they did that, they found that he was in possession of a pocket knife.
Could be the murder weapon.
He was the last person with her, and now he's got a weapon on his person. They're certainly concerned that that could be the murder weapon.
David, what we need to know from you is the last time you saw Karen, where you were.
She came over to visit me last night.
About what time?
She came over about between 8 and 9.
The detectives are probing him for information as if he's a suspect. I don't know that he necessarily recognized that he was a suspect in that moment.
It still was not occurring to me that something this horrific could have happened.
What's she wearing?
She was wearing her blue jeans, blue and white striped shirt, black satin jacket on her head.
She had it on at the time, or did you give it to her when you met her?
I gave it to her, but...
You gave it to her when you left where?
Okay. I walked her up to the bus stop. Then I walked home and left her with my hat.
Detectives are pressing David for details about his hat because that morning they found it next to Karen's body.
Can you describe your hat, David?
It's a blue hat with a patch on the front that says Rush. It's got 2 buttons, a Rolling Stones button and a Judas Priest button. Something happened to her?
That's what we're trying to find out. You walked her up to the bus stop and then left her there?
Mm-hmm.
Did you wait for the bus with her?
No, I had to go home. So I didn't like doing it.
The detectives pushed him quite a bit on why would you leave her out by herself.
Was she physically at the bus stop sitting on the bench when you left?
No.
Where was she?
She was walking toward it from the restaurant.
How come you didn't stay with her?
So I had to be home.
You have any objection? David Tuss looking in your home and looking at the clothes that you were wearing last night.
If you need to know, support.
It's important for us to know because Karen Stitt was murdered last night.
She was murdered last night?
Yes.
I found out that she had been killed at that point, and it just still seemed unreal to me. My world got swept out from under my feet, and then I had that horrible regret of not being there to protect her. And, just thinking about what she must have had to endure, it was just so painful.
David may be reeling from the shock of Karen's loss, but he and his parents take investigators back to his house and they give them his clothes from the night before.
None of his clothes had any biological evidence, no blood, the knife was clean.
But what's missing from the crime scene quickly takes investigators in a different direction.
There's not enough blood on the ground, on the wall, for that to be where she was stabbed.
Could Karen have been attacked and killed somewhere else and then left back at that alley?
There was a witness that came forward and described a very distinct vehicle. They described the coloring and described a sticker. Detectives told officers to be out in the neighborhood day and night trying to find this car. They're casting a very wide net because we just really don't have any idea who did this. Every time I look at the crime scene photos, as traumatic as they are, I want to study them and know them like the back of my own hand because I want to be able to explain every single item. The what, the how, the where, the when, the why. I want to know every answer I can.
In 1982, investigators are also studying the crime scene closely and have zeroed in on Karen's boyfriend.
I don't recall them having any suspicions other than possibly David, because he was the last one with her.
And that's not all. They discovered he had not told everyone the same story about the morning after Karen's murder.
Did you receive a phone call this morning?
Yeah.
What time? Who was it?
It was
procedures room. Did you see why she was looking for Kevin? So he's kind of didn't make it home.
But when he hung up the phone that morning, he had told his mom something different.
When David finishes that conversation, Mom asks him, who was that? And he tells his mom it was Karen.
Even though he explains he was just trying to avoid worrying her, it feeds their suspicions.
When the police are talking to all these different people and getting 4 different versions of the events, they're looking at him saying, well, he's not exactly credible. Why would he lie to his mom about who he just talked to?
Even as they're taking a hard look at David, cops are also re-examining the crime scene and details that seem to be pointing in an entirely different direction.
Where Karen was found, there's not enough blood on the ground, on the wall, for that to be where she was stabbed. There's just no way. I've always believed that whoever abducted her put her into some sort of a vehicle that was big enough that the crime was committed inside the vehicle. The investigators keyed in on that as well. At one point, there was a witness that came forward and described a very distinct vehicle. It was either a truck with a shell over it or a panel van type of vehicle. Detectives told officers, I need you to be out in the neighborhood day and night trying to find this specifically described car. And they actually found a vehicle that matched generally the description and found that guy and interviewed him as well.
But this tip goes nowhere, as does every other potential lead they chase. From a reportedly violent military veteran seen in the area that night, to a clerk at the 7-Eleven, where David Wood said he was playing an arcade game.
They just had blood on the wall, a boyfriend who made some statements that were inconsistent, and there's really nothing else to work.
Did the family suspect anyone?
I don't think there was anyone that the family truly suspected.
And they kept saying, you know, it's only one phone call away. Whoever knows anything at all, just make the call. The longer it went, I knew the harder it was going to be to find somebody.
We didn't hear anything for quite a long time, like 5 years or something. And then somebody would reach out. And then you wouldn't hear anything again for a long time. So I thought it was just like a repeating cycle of they don't have anything, but they're just asking more questions.
But whenever a detective does reopen Karen's file, and many do, one name usually rises to the top.
Really, it's not the boyfriend? Are we sure it's not the boyfriend?
They felt like they knew what happened, and they had a hard time going beyond just looking at the boyfriend.
He was the main suspect initially, and he remained a suspect for years.
I'm sure whatever list of potential suspects was there, I was probably always on there. But, you know, I also knew that, you know, there's no evidence that I would have been able to do something so horrific.
In 2000, a new detective is looking at this case and realizes we can use DNA technology on the blood from our crime scene.
Where are we here?
We are at the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office Crime Laboratory, where we do DNA analysis.
In Karen Stitt's case, you processed some evidence in the year 2000. Why do it now?
The crime laboratory went online with the more modern, newer DNA typing. A 15-year-old girl was murdered in 1982. The victim had been tied up with her own jacket, and this jacket had blood smears and stains all over it.
If you're stabbing someone, the odds are that the blood is going to lubricate your hand and it's going to slip, and you're going to cut your own hand on that knife blade.
So I was looking for something that stood out. This is my note page from the case. I noted that the stains were all soaked or smeared. One little red dot was thick, shiny, and perfectly round, as if someone just dropped it and it dried. Because it stood out, I sampled it for DNA analysis, and it was an unknown male DNA profile.
That same profile matched the blood stain on the wall above her.
That was the point we thought, this is our killer. That's the person that did this. The first thing we did with that was to compare it to her boyfriend.
We do a one-to-one comparison between David Woods and the blood at the scene, and David Woods is eliminated as the source of that blood.
After nearly 20 years, with a cloud of suspicion hanging over him, David Woods is finally ruled out as Karen Stitt's killer.
It's the DNA that allowed us to rule him out as a suspect.
How does this unknown DNA profile change the investigation?
Now that's the person that you need to focus on. Figure out who that blood belongs to.
We didn't know who it was. It was a profile that was eligible to be uploaded into CODIS, the national database, and we did upload it, but there was no hit.
I got to a point where I felt like this probably will never get solved.
It almost became a subject that we didn't talk about in the family.
But 35 years after Karen's death, Hutch takes this case on with a new determination to solve it.
When I first started working it, there had been an article in a local newspaper where her father was quoted. And the sentiment was, I haven't heard from Sunnyvale in quite some time. I don't think they'll ever solve my daughter's case. I called him right away and I said, Mr. Stitt, I'm taking the case now. I will work it. And that conversation was short, and he basically told me, don't call me back until you do.
And as Hutch digs into the case, another unsolved murder in the same town just a few years earlier catches his attention.
A young security guard, 18 years old, stabbed to death inside of an office building.
She was a young girl still in high school.
There's parallels in these cases because they're both stabbed, and it's a complete, what we call a whodunit.
So what connection could there be between these two cases?
I learned fly fish, and it became a godsend to me. Watching my fly go down the river and setting the hook is the only place where I can completely check out from the rest of the world. It recharges my batteries in a sense and gives me the ability to keep going. I wish that we were just catching fish and there wasn't a need to catch people, but this is my job.
Matt was always working on more than one case at a time because he would hit a dead end and he would just start working on another one.
Matt Hutchison is moving full speed ahead trying to solve the Karen Stitt case, but he's also competing with a backlog of current cases the department is trying to close. Sometimes all Hutch can do is wait and begin investigating other cold cases. And then there's the murder of Estela Mena. It was a mystery.
Absolute mystery. Estela came from a strong family. She didn't go out and socialize a lot. She did some martial arts, went to school, and worked.
Long before big tech became a big thing here in Silicon Valley, Western Electric was a leader in the communication business in Sunnyvale. Back in 1979, Estela Mena was a security guard working part-time there while still in high school.
She's 18 years old and she's still in school, but she's taking on such a serious job. I always just looked at it as a sign of her ambition and where she wanted to go in life.
On a Saturday afternoon in October, Estela was planning to attend a martial arts competition after work. She never made it.
It was a weekend where Western Electric didn't have all their employees going in and out of the business. There was less staff on scene. And one of the engineers who had been working upstairs, he's going to leave the business and he hears Estela in the corner struggling to live. He finds her on the ground, stabbed multiple times. She's not communicating with him about who stabbed her.
Attacked where she worked and murdered and tossed behind a vending machine.
The murder is in 1979. Hutch is on the case in 2018.
All right, what do we have here?
This is the overhead scene diagram from 1979 for the murder of Estela Mena. A common thing that crime scene investigators will do is an overhead view of the scene where a crime happened. They'll draw the vending machines, her desk in place, doors, certain things that don't move.
The other category Hutch focuses on are things that do move, items that seem out of place.
I look at things like the screwdriver in the middle of the room. How does that get there? Why is that there? Does it make any sense? Same with the comb. Same with the shoe.
The photo of Estella's shoe also catches the eye of Carol Smith, that volunteer who's been helping out in the cold case unit.
The other detectives that I had worked with suggested that it was probably above her head because the first responders, to get to her, they'd thrown it back over her head.
Carol, you said looking at the scene, it was your impression that the victim was a fighter. Why did you say that?
Because it starts this way and goes all the way to the other side of the lobby. And you can see there's buttons and combs and everything that trail that way. There's blood that trails throughout the lobby. And so, yeah, she fought the whole way.
But the young martial arts student is no match for a killer with a knife.
She didn't have no kind of weapon on her. She didn't have nothing, and she was a security guard, and most security guards do. They have either mace to spray in their eyes or some kind of, if not a gun, I mean a stick or you know, something for her to protect herself with. And she didn't have nothing like that.
Decades later, the family receives an unexpected phone call from Detective Hutch.
I did reach out early on and I said, I'm working this case. I know that there's a family on the other end of that case that's still waiting, and that's painful for them. And if it's painful for them, it's something that I want to try and do everything I can to fix.
By the time Hutch comes on board, Western Electric has ceased operations. The original investigators have long since retired, and the killer has a 39-year head start.
I've always picked up a cold case knowing that it is my goal to solve it, but that might be difficult and I may not succeed, but I can leave it better than I found it.
In the early stages of the investigation, the biggest lead was the smallest piece of evidence, a speck of blood.
When the crime scene was processed, the Sunnyvale detectives found a drop of blood on the door frame, the same door that the killer would have gone through.
I knew if we're ever going to solve it, we need to be able to answer who's the source of that blood.
You can't prosecute that case unless you know who the blood on the door frame is.
On the day of the crime, Western Electric was in the process of moving to another facility.
So the building itself had a lot of people that were in and out of there that weren't necessarily associated to the business.
Over time, investigators interview them all. The end result? Nobody knew anything. Nobody saw anything.
Thank you. Much like Karen's case, Estella's case gets under your skin and it sticks with you, and they won't let you give up.
Matt Hutchison is about to get some assistance from a very unlikely source.
I explained to them who my victim is and what the case is, and they are on board. How can we help you? What do you need from us to help solve this murder of this young girl? I said, I need a trash truck.
One of the best ways to find a killer is to get a sample of their DNA. And the best way to do that is to grab their trash.
This is your guy.
Matt Hutchison.
I didn't do anything wrong.
In my line of work, it's very common for people to lie to us. I want to see if I can rattle his cage a little bit. The reason for your blood to be found inside that lobby? Nobody should have to see the things that were done to those two girls. But I'm fine with it being me if it means I can solve them.
And solve them by any means necessary.
Because if he sees you out the window, your cover is blowing.
I rode the truck as if I was just any other employee. Any reason for your blood to be found inside that lobby where this happened?
Juggling two cold cases But is it the same killer?
We just needed to find a name to match that DNA.
That's what we look for. You have someone who was killed or stabbed or shot.
You gotta look at
and
everything.
that person, they're bloody all over.
So we just took our pool of suspects from millions to there's 3 men in the world that it could be.
Crucial work here.
A very crucial work.
And is one of them connected to this psychic?
You're not gonna make me cry, right? If you don't cry, I don't feel like I've done my job.
This is the one chance we're gonna get at it, and we can't screw it up.
Bingo.
We're going now. Because I have to go take care of Karen. I have to go take care of Estella. Oh, man.
Detective Matt Hutchison is stuck in the past by choice.
I'm fortunate to work cold cases in Sunnyvale.
Working case files pulled from a closet few others dare to enter.
I went in there, I almost turned around and went out and said I give up.
Instead, he starts working multiple cases at the same time, including 2 eerily similar stabbings. Karen Stitt, a 15-year-old stabbed multiple times while on her way to the bus. Estella Mena, an 18-year-old security guard attacked on the job at Western Electric. Both murdered, but by whom?
There's constant disappointment.
Can the man they call Hutch break the cases before the cases break him?
Oh, man. In the Estella Mena case, there was an entry-exit door to that lobby that had a small smear of blood on it.
They had found 1 drop of blood, obviously not the victim's blood. It was somebody else's blood. It was found a few feet away. They decided this must be the person.
We put it through CODIS, got no matches.
CODIS is a database that contains DNA profiles of convicted felons and people arrested for felonies in certain states.
If you didn't get a match, if you didn't get a hit, basically the approach for law enforcement is, well, there's nothing else we can do.
But the game changes with the arrival of forensic genetic genealogy. Now that same genetic profile found on the doorframe can be compared not to criminal databases, but to millions of profiles submitted to public genealogy websites.
We got back some genetic matches that were close relatives that quickly kind of identified one gentleman who lived in Southern California who could be the source.
It's the best lead investigators have had since 1979, a subject with a connection to Western Electric.
I went into the case file with the name of the subject that lived in Southern California, and he jumps off the page. He was an employee at Western Electric. He did a brief interview in 1979, a couple days after the homicide. He essentially said, "Hey, I'm an employee of the mailroom. I don't know anything about the homicide." So we devised a plan to try to collect his trash that he's left out at the curb. A partner and I fly down to Southern California where he lives.
But the execution of that plan is more complicated. Police surveillance reveals the subject puts out his trash just moments before the garbage truck comes down the street. So taking it in the middle of the night is not an option. You want the element of surprise, because if he sees you out the window, right, your cover is blown.
Our cover's blown, evidence could be gone, he could be prepared for the interview and come up with a story that I can't refute. When I get face to face with him, I want it to be the first time he knows we're investigating him.
So you got to be able to surprise him.
Have to.
You got to get creative.
I do. We actually contacted the trash company in this case and got them to give us a truck so that we could drive on the truck and collect the entire can.
You asked the trash company for a truck. Their reaction?
At first they were like, this is not the type of thing that we do. And then I introduce them to my victim and I tell them the story. I tell them who she is and why this is important, why this is the only way. And then they're 100% on board.
It has to be realistic, right?
It has to look like every other trash day that he's ever had. It was important that I look exactly like another trash employee. So I had the vest on, I rode the truck as if I was just any other employee because we didn't want to give the impression anything was changed. They roll out the old beast that's been on the line for probably 15 years, and it's got 3 inches of just sludge.
Sludge.
Just disgusting. And I tell them, guys, we're going to put samples of DNA into this thing. It has to be pristine. We have to have a way to preserve this evidence. These trucks are designed so that when a can goes in, it smashes all the trash to make room for the next can. We disabled the compactor arm, and then we drove to a local hardware store and bought a big tarp and crawled up in there and rigged it up inside the truck so that when the can dumped in, we would catch just our trash and it wouldn't touch anything else, and we'd be able to drive away with it.
So then you hit the streets. You head to this guy's house, and what happens there?
The first thing I see is another one of these trucks half a block ahead of us, and I'm in full panic, thinking this guy's gonna take our can. We got on the horn with him and said, you need to just blow by the address. He listened, thankfully, and when he goes by, we pull up and we make a left into this gentleman's court, and I see his can, and I know the game's on.
The trash is successfully deposited into the truck. Hutch is booked on the next flight to get back to Sunnyvale, but he can't let the evidence out of his sight.
We found a lot of cigarette butts, bottles, cans, anything that somebody puts in their mouth can be a source of DNA. And then I try to get through TSA with a suitcase full of trash, thinking that they're gonna put me on some sort of watch list or something. We were able to get on the plane, fly it back, and then my task is immediately take it to the crime lab because we want it tested right now.
Match or no match?
It's a match. We know who the source of the blood is inside our crime scene now. The work is on now. We have to prove that he's the one that did it.
Hutch returns to Southern California, and this time it's to come face to face with his prime suspect.
This is your guy. Matt Hutchinson, I'm really sorry to ruin your day, and that's the copy of the search warrant.
Jesus. Why do we have to have a search warrant? I didn't do anything wrong.
I come back to Southern California, where the employee of Western Electric lives.
I think everyone assumed quite reasonably that the blood on the door frame that the killer went through has to be our killer.
When we arrived at his house, we had the local police department with us. We'll do this wherever you're comfortable. Okay, I appreciate it.
You want a cup of coffee?
I'm okay, thank you. I want to see if I can rattle his cage a little bit and make him uncomfortable, and maybe he'll slip up. In my line of work, it's very common for people to lie to you. Did you ever suffer any kind of injuries or have any accidents when you worked at Western Electric?
Not that I remember.
Maybe he'll say something, or maybe he'll give me some indication that he actually is the perpetrator in this case. This is one of the doors leaving the business. There's a blood smear.
See it right there.
Any reason for your blood to be found inside that lobby where this happened?
I don't think so. Why would you kill the security guard? There was no money there.
He couldn't have been calmer or more cooperative.
Have a safe trip back.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I wish I could be more help, but
So when I look at that, I believe that he's credible, but he might just be a good actor. He might be just saying all the right things. I know I need more evidence than just the blood on the door. Can I put him somewhere closer to the victim, maybe on the victim's body, on her clothing, on some item that I know she touched and interacted with?
We need to look at all of the evidence all over again.
And as soon as I knew we were going to test other items, I came back to Carol's voice in my head saying, Matt, you have to test the shoe. You have to test the shoe.
The two of you talked about that shoe
Yes.
incessantly, apparently.
You can ask Matt, but yeah, I bugged him.
She made it very clear to me that she wouldn't speak to me again if we didn't test that shoe. The bottom line is that shoe should have been on her foot, and it's not anymore. And that only happens because it falls off during the fight.
Although they've seen the crime scene photos numerous times, neither Hutch nor Carol have seen the actual evidence until now.
This really humanizes it.
You see a height and a weight on a piece of paper, just somebody's statistics, and that resonates in your brain. You see that, and then you hold something that belonged to them, and you see just how tiny she was. You can see the different areas that they sampled here, where you see a circle with pen. You can see a slight faint stain in there. Blood doesn't always come up like a bright red stain that's going to jump off the page at you.
From that tiny wedge shoe comes the answer Hutch has been looking for. The blood on that shoe is not just Estella's. There's also someone else's blood that doesn't match that former employee they've been pursuing. So, whose blood is it?
It's not the same guy that's on the doorframe, which now throws a wrench into my case.
The unknown DNA is entered into CODIS, and this time, a hit.
There's a gentleman named Samuel Silva who lived in the state of Colorado, who was identified as the source of the blood that was on Estella's shoe and the DNA on her pants.
Sam Silva's killed before. He was a violent felon. He was arrested for rape. He was arrested for attempted murder. All of this in Colorado.
The main question now for the detective: was Samuel Silva ever in California? Hutch gets the answers by digging up Colorado probation reports, where officers once asked Silva if he ever lived outside of that state.
And when the probation officer asked him, well, where were you and what were you doing? He said, I was living in Sunnyvale, California with my two brothers in 1978, which would have put him in my city and possibly crossing paths with my victim.
Estella Mena was killed in 1979. The street in Sunnyvale where Silva lived was less than 2 miles from Western Electric. Matt Hutchison keeps digging. He finds a copy of a resume that belonged to Estella Mena. It turns out that before she worked at Western Electric, she worked here at Great America Amusement Park. And guess who else worked here?
Sam Silva also previously worked at Great America. We don't know if they knew each other for sure, but maybe that's where he got to know her.
And eventually, Carol, you hear the news that there's been a break in the case.
Matt called me immediately when he got the news, so this part always makes me teary because that was such a... I mean, that just gets to your heart. And all these years, yeah, to finally hear that we had gotten this one done, that was a big day.
But no matter how hard the detective keeps working the case, there'll be no arrest, no conviction. Samuel Silva had died years earlier.
I know I can never put handcuffs on him. I can never tell the family that we got him. You still have a job to do. When I go to the family and I say Samuel Silva is the person that did it, that's not all I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them why I believe that. It is my belief that she was the intended target of him coming to that business, and that she either said no to him, I'm not interested, or whatever it was that initiated an assault from him, and she fought for her life.
It was Estella's sister Marta, seen here in a news report from our station KGO in San Francisco, who would grow up and coin a phrase that would one day make headlines.
Marta, apparently is a fairly religious person, told me that Matt had flew up and met with her. And she said that when he left, she turned to her husband and said, that's one badass detective.
There can be no better moment for me as an investigator than to tell them, it's done. We know who he is. He didn't get away with this.
Hutch is not done. Karen Stitt's killer is still very much alive, and the detective is closing in.
I'm going to put handcuffs on the person that murdered Karen Stitt.
In the decades-long mystery of who killed 15-year-old Karen Stitt, Sunnyvale has an answer of sorts.
We knew who the killer was, except for his name. We had his DNA profile. We just needed to find a name to match that DNA.
So they decide to enlist a lab on the East Coast that specializes in forensic genetic genealogy to try to figure out who their suspect is.
When we send the DNA off for genealogy, we're taking that blood that we know belongs to a male, converting it to a genealogical sample to see if we can match to any of his relatives. We can then try to work backwards and figure out who he is.
Hutch has a lot of hope, but it's immediately crushed.
We get back 3 very distant relatives, all third cousins. The advice from the lab was move on to a different case. You're not going to solve this one.
We're talking about people that are so remote, there's basically no chance that we're going to be able to build a family tree to narrow it down to this particular perpetrator.
They said, Matt, do you know your third cousins? And I don't know any of them, so it made sense to me that this is going to be an uphill battle.
He was a little bummed, but I know Matt, and I've known Matt for a long time, that wasn't going to keep him down for too long.
It's easy to feel sorry for yourself as a cold case investigator and say, well, these cases are so dang hard. If I don't solve it, nobody's going to get mad at me. I'm just going to put it away. I quickly learned that I couldn't have that kind of attitude with Karen. I took her picture and I put it up on my desk right behind my phone. She's staring at me, telling me, don't give up on my case, you can solve it.
If 3 third cousins are as close as he can get, Hutch decides to start there.
So I went about the task of, let me build this tree as big as I possibly can get it.
From what he can see online, one of those third cousins has already built out an extensive family tree, potentially crucial investigative leads. But first, Hutch has to convince that cousin to help him.
He left me a message, and I remember laughing, and I told my husband, wow, pranking and, identity theft has reached a new level. A couple days later, I received a text message. He sent me a picture of his business card and his officer badge on a table.
He offers to fly to Texas and meet her in person. Still skeptical, she insists that their first contact has to be in a safe place.
We met at the small police department where she lived and then told her who Karen was, told her why we needed her help, and she said, that's enough for me. Come back to my house and I'll give you everything I've got.
It really struck me. He cared about Karen, he cared about her family, he cared about what happened to her.
And so we rolled the family trees out on her kitchen table.
All of the profiles of people who were living were basically blacked out. And he asked me if I would be willing to fill in all the blank spots.
How many names did you wind up writing down for him?
I want to say it was at least 100. Once I knew the specifics of the case, I went back into my family tree and started looking for people that I thought could potentially be a suspect.
We're building the data, but we have no idea where to go with it at that point. I'm just waiting for something or someone to come along and help me.
And that's exactly what happens one day after Hutch gives a talk on cold cases at the Sunnyvale Library.
I get approached by 3 women afterwards, and they say, well, we're daughters of the American Revolution. So that sounds really neat. What the heck does that mean? And they said, well, we've chased our DNA all the way back to the American Revolution. I said, wow, you guys seem like you're the experts. Have you ever thought about working for a police department?
They keep their day jobs, but agree to volunteer on Karen's case, working with Hutch to fill in the blanks across the suspect's family tree. One day, his phone rings.
There was one genealogist that kind of took the lead amongst the rest of them, and she called me and said, we have something. And she didn't talk like that in any of the other times I'd ever talked to her, so I start getting excited. I'm like, we have the guy? She goes, no, we don't have the guy, but there's this person. If you go out and you get their DNA, we'll know if we need to go after that person's cousins or if we need to go after that person's uncles. He's local. He's in San Jose, which is 10 minutes down the road.
After a simple local trash grab one night, the results confirm Karen Stitt's killer is one of this man's 3 uncles.
So we just took our pool of suspects from millions and you're never going to solve it, according to the genealogy lab, to there's 3 men in the world that it could be. And I'm bouncing off the walls at this point. My partner, Corinne, and I figure out that one of the uncles is living in North Las Vegas, and we know his trash day. We're going to collect his trash early in the morning and drive it all the way back the very next day.
I was pretty excited, a little nervous. I remember it being very, very quiet. And it sounded like the loudest thing, just trying to pull the garbage bag out of the trash can. Nobody came out, but it felt like, you know, this is the loudest thing going on in the block. So we grabbed the trash and we immediately take off. We drove straight through the night back up to Santa Clara County.
And then our crime lab comes back and says, oh yeah, this guy, no, he's not the killer, but you know what? One of his brothers is the killer.
We've now shrunk the pool of suspects down to 2.
Determining which of the 2 brothers murdered Karen Stitt will require Matt and Corinne to go undercover and visit a psychic.
She got a fake wedding ring, and I wore my real one, of course, and we got our palms read, but we can't give her too much where it looks like we're cops.
You gotta be careful.
For all I know, she's gonna catch me.
Investigators Matt Hutchison and Corinne Abernathy are steadily narrowing down their suspects in the 40-year-old murder of Karen Stitt.
Through just working the leads and not giving up and building these family trees out, we narrowed it down to a group of 4 brothers.
There was a lot of case discussion on which route we would take.
And then it becomes a process of elimination. One by one, you got to go out and get their DNA. And that leaves us with 2 brothers, basically on opposite ends of the country. One was in Maine, and one was on the island of Maui in Hawaii.
It came down to Gary Ramirez and another brother. Gary lived in Maui.
We ultimately ended up in Hawaii. We didn't know too much about the individual in Hawaii.
We knew that he lived in Maui, but we didn't know precisely where. We had a good idea, but there was no way to verify if he was actually living in that particular house.
Some of the last records on file of where he may possibly reside was this residence.
So we had to get a little bit creative and see if there was a way that we could confirm that he was even living there. I did just an open source search on Google of the address, and there's a pin on the address that says that there's a local psychic.
A psychic?
She's the landlord of the house, and she does palm readings out of the residence itself.
Hey, yo. Hey,
It's not every day that while you're investigating somebody, you have a ticket into their life and a way to get into their life without them knowing that you're there. And so we went as a married couple, and my partner got a fake wedding ring, and I wore my real one, of course, and we sat on her lanai and got our palms read.
Tell me your name again. Corinne. Corinne, and your name is? Matt. Matt. Okay. So he's more sensitive.
Oh, that sounds all right.
He is a very caring, compassionate man.
Yeah, absolutely. And he likes the truth.
Oh, it's fine.
Oh, no.
You're not going to make me cry, right?
I try to make people cry. Oh, if you don't cry, I don't feel like I've done my job.
In the time that I've worked with him, we know each other very well, so it was very easy to play off him and vice versa. He play off of me. But Matt would definitely try to get a little bit of, information from her.
We created a backstory that we met at Fresno State. It's because our suspect who was living with her grew up in Fresno. We wanted to see if we drop a nugget, if she'll pick it up.
That's really smart.
I said I had a brother named Gary. To try to see if she would take the bait.
I've got 2 brothers, 2 older brothers, Gary and Jeff. They drive me crazy.
You got to be careful not to say too much and become too obvious.
It's a balancing act. And she might be a psychic. For all I know, she's going to catch me.
And it was a great opportunity for you.
If nothing else, we got a look at the layout of the residence so that when we go and eventually make contact there, we're not going in blind. I could hear rustling from a garage that sounded like there was people probably living in there, like it was a converted dwelling.
He was kind of lying low or just really under the radar, so that may have just been his normal pattern of life.
She never took any of the bait, she just took our money.
Forbidden by local laws from making a trash grab in Maui without a search warrant, Hutch and Corinne return to Sunnyvale and they devise a new plan. If they can test the DNA of the brother's biological child, that could tell them if they found Karen's killer.
The gentleman who lived in Maui had a daughter that lived in California.
We had another mission to go down to San Diego.
So same as Vegas, we devised a plan. We're gonna drive all the way down to Southern California, collect the trash, and drive it all the way back.
I remember walking down the street with a garbage bag and safety lights come on, just porch lights, and I felt like stadium lighting as I'm walking down the street with a trash bag. All I remember is I need to get back to the car and we gotta go.
And we were able to go out and get a sample of her DNA as a means of testing against the sample of blood at the crime scene and essentially doing a paternity test. And we brought them back up here for testing.
The crime lab report said, this is the daughter of the killer. And that's when we knew. It was Gary Ramirez.
Bingo.
The next step was to hook him up in Maui.
We're going now. We have him now, we're going now.
So I'll let you hold on to that. The paperwork we have to notify you of here is a warrant for your arrest.
Once we knew that Gary was our guy, we filed a complaint charging him with murder.
We're gonna go and make an arrest in Hawaii.
Did you know he was going to be there?
We had a Maui detective call Gary and say, you might be the victim of identity theft, can you call us back? And when we landed and tried to do a briefing with the local authorities, he called and said, I want to meet with you guys right now.
Bingo.
Everybody sitting around that briefing table looked at each other and said, we're going now. As we pulled up, I saw Gary Ramirez.
Yeah, how you doing, sir?
I recognized him from his photos.
Yeah, we just have to verify who we're talking to so we make sure we have the right investigation going. Do you have your ID? Do you have an ID?
No, I have a military ID.
Okay. Is that something that we can see? The paperwork we have to notify you of here is a warrant for your arrest. So I'm gonna hold on to this. We're gonna do this right away, right off the bat for you. I'm not gonna let you fall down or anything like that. Go ahead and turn that way and just keep your hands behind your back for you.
I knew 10 seconds from now, I'm gonna put handcuffs on the person that murdered Karen Stitt. And they're not just any handcuffs. I took my stepdad's handcuffs from when he was an officer in the city of Sunnyvale because I wanted some representative of Karen from 1982 to be part of that arrest.
It meant that much to you.
It meant that much to me, but I knew it meant that much to his generation of cops.
Oh no, what happened? What did I do?
It's something that's really old that we would be happy to talk to you about and share more information.
Oh no, what did I do?
So I'm gonna walk with you so we're not standing right by the house. Can you walk forward for me?
His reaction?
He tried to express surprise, but it didn't come off genuine to me at all.
We'll get him to the car and then we'll explain it. We have a warrant for his arrest.
I don't know what I did.
For somebody to be accused of something so heinous, if they know they didn't do it, I would have expected much stronger denials. You have the wrong person. This is wrong.
This is the penal custom burger in California.
What did I do? What? No, something's wrong.
Hutch and Corinne drive Gary Ramirez to Maui's police department to be processed and questioned.
This is kind of the moment, especially for Matt, where you ultimately want to try to get as much information as you can and just get the truth.
Can I come in, Gary?
Hi, Gary.
You said you were being a cop.
What's that? Thank you.
The way he conducts those interviews, he's so good at getting people to be comfortable. It's a work of art.
You're saying it's not you. I want as much explanation for how it's not you as possible so I can go find the guy that it is then.
Okay.
My goal in this is not to put the wrong guy in custody. I was careful not to tell him Karen's name, not to tell him the city of Sunnyvale. I wanted him on the defense. I wanted him to not know what I knew.
And you said you used to work in sales, right?
Yes.
And you said car sales while you were in college?
Yeah, I was in college, yeah.
The violent nature of Karen's murder led me to believe that he could be responsible for other murders. I want to learn as much as I can about him.
So Denver, Colorado, Libya, where'd you do your basic training?
Lackland?
Where's Lackland? Texas?
Texas.
Did you even get to get stationed anywhere in California close to home or anything?
No. It's all right. I had fun.
We talked to him about the places he had lived, jobs that he had.
Jones Cleaners, I worked for them.
And Jones Cleaners was out of Fresno?
Yeah.
Vehicles that he drove.
I think I sold the Mustang, and then I got the van. I always wanted the van. I wanted to fix it up, you know, but I just never got around to it. I mean, you wouldn't want a van when you're young and you say, go hang out, party, stuff inside.
Yeah? Did you ever have parties inside? Like, I know people would put like black light in there.
I never had a girl in there.
But remember, Hutch always believed it was possible Karen had been murdered in a vehicle and then left in that alley.
We spent probably more than 2 hours with Gary before we ever talked about this case at all.
That's strange, right?
Very strange to me. And I actually confronted him about that.
It's curious to me that you're under arrest for murder and you don't have any questions about that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
You know what murder is, though, right?
Yeah.
Killing a person?
Yeah.
Have you ever killed a person, Gary?
No.
When I told him, you're not even asking me what agency I work for, his response was, I know what agency you're from.
You already told me. San Francisco.
I didn't tell you that. I don't work in the city of San Francisco.
Immediately, it's like a light bulb in my head thinking, what did you do in San Francisco that's causing you to believe that San Francisco police has shown up on your doorstep?
Where do you work?
I work in the city of Sunnyvale, Gary.
Where?
Sunnyvale.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
That's a 15-year-old girl, Gary.
That's all? Doesn't ring a bell? Is that the right word?
Okay. Is there any reason you can think of that I would have blood evidence and that blood belongs to you?
I don't know how that would happen. I don't know how that would happen.
Are you curious how she was killed?
That's horrible. Yes, how was she killed?
You stabbed her 60 times, Gary.
Oh my God, no, I didn't do anything like that. This is awful, you guys.
He invokes his right to an attorney.
You guys are accusing something I didn't do. I'd like to have a lawyer if it's okay with you guys.
And that means I'm done. I can't talk to him anymore. I've got to shut it down and walk out of the room.
You got it, Gary.
Even without a confession, Hutch is sure he has Karen's killer in custody, but he's waiting for one final confirmation.
The DNA all says he did it. But the ultimate answer for prosecution and for me as a detective...
Open your mouth, and we're going to swab one on each side.
...is when we put that swab inside of his cheek and have that tested directly against the blood. Now we're going one-to-one. Is this the same person?
A Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety detective flew it back, brought the sample to the lab.
They worked this case 24 hours until they got the result.
By about 3 a.m., I had the DNA results. I compared it to the evidence from the blood stain from the jacket, and it was an exact match.
I remember being in bed, but something told me, wake up and look at your computer. And I had an email from the crime lab, and it said, Gary Ramirez is the person that killed Karen Stitt. Just like I had her picture at my desk all these years, I had her picture on my computer, and I pulled it up and I said, Karen, we did it.
Hutch then calls Karen's loved ones, who have waited 40 years for the news he's finally able to deliver.
I was just overwashed with emotion. I'm amazed and grateful that this day it finally came.
Oh my God, 40 years later.
You had never heard of this man prior to this?
No, not at all. It was shocking to me when he told me how old he was. I was bitter, to be perfectly honest with you, that this man got to live a full life And in return, we lost Karen.
When it's time to go to court, the man who loved Karen will finally face the man who killed her.
I wanted to be there whenever he was present. I wanted to make eye contact with him, straight-faced eye contact.
But I want him to say I'm guilty, and I want him to explain what he did.
The case against Gary Ramirez never went to trial. Instead, the elderly Ramirez pleaded no contest for the murder of Karen Stitt.
A maximum sentence for 78-year-old Gary Ramirez for first-degree murder.
He was never separately charged for Karen's sexual assault.
He entered court with a cane, long gray hair, and glasses, and sat silently looking forward or down as victims read their statements.
Just everything came back about what he did to her and how brutal he was to her and how he threw her away like trash. But I was able to get through it, told him what I thought about him, and I hope he heard every word.
She was stabbed nearly 60 times. He was just looking straight ahead, so there was no eye contact or no reaction from him when any of us spoke.
I would love to talk to Gary Ramirez. Tell me what happened that night, why he chose Karen, where he chose Karen, just to be honest and tell the truth instead of, copping out and pleading no contest.
40 years of freedom, lived through the prime of his life, probably acting like nothing happened, He may even still try to deny it in his own head.
There's a cost to solving cold cases, a psychological one.
They're gonna haunt me too. There's just no way around that. They get into your soul, and these cases will affect me for the rest of my life.
There's also an emotional toll paid. For Matt Hutchison, providing closure for other families sometimes comes at the expense of his own.
There's times I have to give my little boys a hug and a kiss goodbye and say I'm going to be gone for 3 or 4 days, and you're not going to understand why. But what I always try to do is I would tell my sons, I need you to work the case with me. And they'd say, well, what does that mean, Dad? And it says, I'd say, you take care of Mom because I have to go take care of Karen. I have to go take care of Estella.
Hutch gets to know each of the families, and the Mena family has treated him with open arms.
They're almost like extended family now. They call me Sobrino,
wow.
which is really cool.
Sobrino means nephew.
After her case was solved, they held a memorial mass for her, and they invited me to be a part of it, and then afterwards they had a reception, and I got to just sit with her family and hear stories that don't make it into a police report.
Matt Hutchison will be the first to say he didn't solve these cases alone.
It was all of us. It's not just me. I was able to still test blood and clothing and different things and get DNA on them 40 plus years after the crime because the investigators collected them.
They had no idea about DNA technology then, but the evidence they collected is what ultimately led to both of these cases being solved.
I think it's really significant and impactful that both in the Karen Stitt case and in the Estella Mena case, key players and key personnel were volunteers.
You ever allow yourself to acknowledge that you were so much more than just a volunteer file clerk?
That's what I did, though.
Some people would call you a hero.
No. I was organizing files, helping Matt.
And you do it all over again.
Absolutely.
I'll do whatever I can to get more of these cases worked. If more of them get worked, more of them get solved. And I hope all the Gary Ramirez's of the world and the Samuel Silvas of the world are living in fear for the knock on the door that's coming.
A promise and a warning backed up by the numbers. Detective Hutch tells us that he's very close to making an arrest on an 8th cold case now. Of course, we'll stay on that.
Absolutely, we will. And while he continues to investigate, Hutch has not connected Gary Ramirez to any additional crimes in California. We reached out to Ramirez for comment, David, but we did not hear back. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at ABC News in 2020. Tonight, a red-hot court case from this summer, the so-called Black Swan. Was it murder or was it self-defense?
David, I have the exclusive interview with the ballerina at the center of it all. Not on stage, but on trial for murder. An all-new 2020 begins right now.
I was living a nightmare at home. It was terrifying. It was like 2 different people, and I never knew which Doug I was gonna get.
You're 24, he's 54. Were you worried about her connecting with this guy who's so much older?
Things didn't start off well. It was like, oh yeah, Eva, this is my new wife.
I felt like Ashley was taking my dad away from me.
It was all a masquerade. I mean, can I straight up say that? Doug was not who he portrayed himself to be.
That was sort of like, what's going on?
So you're thinking that your husband, the man who loved you and seemed to adore you, would poison you?
I read the allegations and I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. Doug never poisoned Ashley.
Is it possible that maybe you just imagined this?
Maybe it was all in my head.
But you know now that this sounds pretty dysfunctional.
Doug, what are you doing? To try to ruin your life. I don't think he could have ever guessed what was going to happen to him.
I've never been so scared in my life.
Growing up, Ashley Benefield wanted nothing more than to become a world-class ballerina. She never dreamed that one day she'd be wearing a court-ordered ankle bracelet along with her pointe shoes.
Man County 911. What is the emergency?
Okay, Ruth right next door to me. She came in. She was quite hysterical. She said that he attacked her, and she shot him.
Where is the gun?
I have it right here, ma'am. It's sitting on the floor. Where in the house is he?
Deputies are moving as fast as they can.
A normally quiet Lakewood Ranch neighborhood turned into a bloody crime scene. Was it murder or self-defense? It's a story with a lot of twists and turns.
The 32-year-old former ballerina alleging he attacked her in her home and that she fired back multiple times in self-defense.
Miss Benefield was in great fear of immediate and severe bodily harm.
A woman out on bond, still awaiting her fate.
So many law enforcement officials said, no, this isn't adding up.
Former ballerina at the center of the so-called Black Swan murder trial. Only 2 people know exactly what happened. One of them is a suspect for second-degree murder. The other is dead.
Until now, Ashley has remained silent about the night of the shooting, about what happened in that house in this Florida community. But tonight, in her first interview, Ashley Benefield tells her story.
Is you rolling?
Hey there. Your first time doing this, so here we go. Let's go back to your life in the beginning. You wanted to be a ballet dancer?
Yeah, actually, I started when I was 8. A family member was dancing on Broadway, and I was very inspired by her and what she was doing.
And what was it about ballet that captivated you?
It's complex. It's something that is beautiful and powerful, but at the same time, there's a lot of control, and you have to be reserved. I think it's just the kind of dynamic of all of the things combined.
Ashley grew up in Maryland as an only child. Her mom, Alicia Byers, says they had a special bond. Your marriage dissolved, you split up with her father, and you raised her as a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for the two of you?
At first it was an adjustment, but we did well. We're very close. She was blessed with a lot of talents. And so it was a real joy raising her.
And at some point she becomes smitten with ballet.
Very, very, yes. She got to the point where she did it 7 days a week.
I was training during the day, all day. It was an everyday, all day thing.
She soon learns that it takes more than ability alone to make it as a professional dancer. Ashley's 5'9" and considered by most ballet companies to be too tall, something no amount of training can overcome.
There are height ranges in companies. A lot of that is because of partnering and complications that can arise if you're not well matched height-wise.
The ballet world tends to be kind of cookie cutter. It was hard finding a good fit for a company.
With her height and then a hamstring injury holding her back, Ashley decides to hang up her point shoes in her early 20s. You begin to shift your focus a little bit. In 2016, you became captivated by politics. What led you to the Trump campaign?
Well, I'd actually always been interested in politics. I wasn't looking for it. The opportunity came up, and I was just finishing up with one chapter of my life, and it seemed like the right thing to do, so I jumped in.
Ashley's job for the Trump campaign was to go to rallies, and she would rile up the crowd, pray with the crowd. You could actually see videos of her online. She thought she was going to be part of the Trump team.
In her diary entries from this time, Ashley says she felt a special bond with candidate Trump. She writes, "We got to the plane early and waited for Mr. Trump to arrive." Ashley writes about her hopes for her future. She writes kind of a plea to God. "I want to be a wife and mother. Please bring me to that special man you've chosen for me."
Ashley wanted children. She wanted a family. She prayed that God would bring her a man to be with her. She made it clear in the diary what her plan was.
In August of 2016, in the thick of the campaign, her prayers seemed to be answered while attending a fundraiser at Dr. Ben Carson's home in Palm Beach, Florida. At some point, you meet a man named Doug Benefield.
Yes.
What did you think of him?
He was charming. Very funny, really smart, confident, but quiet. We were there for political reasons, but then also he was a man of faith, shared similar interests.
Those common interests included politics, God, and guns.
First night that Doug and Ashley met, Ashley had a gun in her bra. Doug, who has a military background, he thought, wow, look at this girl. Like, she's strong and she's powerful and she's, not afraid of weapons, and everything about her was just great.
He nicknamed you Ashley Oakley.
Yeah, we both had very strong opinions about the Second Amendment. That was something we bonded over. I had a concealed carry permit. You wanted to be a responsible gun owner. We talked the whole night. When the evening was over and everyone was leaving, we were texting and up till 3 o'clock in the morning. It just seemed like I had met my soulmate. We were like the perfect match. He kind of swept me off my feet. It was like a whirlwind. I think it was about 4 days in when he first told me he loved me.
4 days? That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it was quick.
Something else Ashley says didn't bother her was the couple's significant age difference. You're 24, he's 54.
Yeah.
You're a young woman. Suddenly you're being romanced by this 54-year-old man. Did anybody in your life say, slow down, Ashley?
No, it just kind of happened.
But the bliss wouldn't last. Ashley learns that the man she's falling for has been married before.
Nothing was adding up. The more I tried to figure things out, the more the story changed.
And she says she begins uncovering secrets, leading her to wonder just who Doug Benefield really is. In the summer of 2016, 24-year-old Ashley Benefield is on the road stumping for Donald Trump when she finds romance at a Palm Beach fundraiser. Did sparks begin to fly between you two?
It was like an instant connection, yeah. We both had that evangelical background, so we spent a lot of time talking about that.
Doug Benefield grew up in a Baptist family, the middle of 3 sons, with a stay-at-home mom and a father who worked as a scientist at NASA.
Doug graduated from high school in Huntsville, Alabama. He was a top wrestler in the state. He decided to follow his father and our family to Texas A&M.
After graduating from college, Doug joins the U.S. Navy in Pensacola. He rises through the ranks quickly, and the Navy assigns Doug to a position in Charleston, South Carolina.
While he's working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, he gets involved in renovations of old historic buildings with people that he meets in Charleston.
Doug started up some businesses here, a restaurant, some other things. He had a group of friends and colleagues.
He loved it there. And one of those locations that he most loved was out on Sullivan's Island. Doug found a small hole-in-the-wall Irish pub called Dunlevy's Pub. That same Irish pub is where he meets his wife, Renee.
If someone were to ask me to sum up Renee in a few sentences, it'd be very difficult. She's stunningly beautiful but doesn't know it, and loves to make people laugh.
Doug has a pretty quick courtship with a woman named Renee Kauser. They marry, and in 2001, their daughter Eva is born.
My mom was the sweetest, happiest woman you would ever meet. She was an angel walking on earth. She was never, ever, ever in a bad mood. She loved everybody.
Doug's marriage to Renee, by all accounts, was a happy marriage. Of course, ups and downs, but generally a happy marriage.
Doug and Renee and Eva together are just this triad. They're just 3 together all the time. You never saw them apart. Happy, beautiful family.
But when Eva is just 14, the happy family suffers a devastating loss.
I was waiting in the pickup line outside of my school, and she wasn't there. And I went home, and nobody was answering the doorbell, and I didn't have my key, and my mom wasn't answering her texts.
Eva called and said, I can't get a hold of my mom, and Dad's in Dallas. And so I get on the phone with Doug.
Doug asks Melody for help. Her husband goes next door and breaks into the house to find Renee unresponsive, face down on her bed.
I just remember going back out on the porch and seeing my neighbor's face, and he shook his head, and I knew that she just wasn't there anymore. She passed of an underlying heart condition. It was shocking.
An autopsy reveals that Renee died of natural causes.
He tried to stay really strong for me, and I never really saw him break down from it. It was different. It was quiet in the house. It was just different.
Then, just 9 short months after her mother's passing, Eva meets a new woman in her father's life, Ashley Benefield.
I heard about her on a Friday. I met her the following Saturday, and then Sunday, I was up in my room, and my dad came upstairs, and he said, Eva, we need to have a conversation, all 3 of us. And I said, no, I think the only thing that I would be interested in hearing is if you told me that you proposed to her. And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, he said, we're married. Yeah, it was a lot.
Eva's not the only one blindsided by the quick marriage, which happened at a secret ceremony just 13 days after Doug and Ashley met.
First time I hear anything about Ashley is they're married and she's already moved in to Doug's home in Mount Pleasant.
How did he propose? Was this a formal get on his knee and propose to you? How did that happen?
It was more of like, hey, we should just do this. Like, let's get married. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
They move very quickly, and before you know it, they're engaged and married.
Yeah, it was like, whoa.
What was your wedding like?
It was small. It was just me and Doug and 2 of his friends.
So suddenly you're Mrs. Benefield.
Yep.
Were you happy?
I was thrilled. Yeah, I felt like I had finally met my soulmate. I think a lot of it had to do with Eva. He really sold me on the fact that she needed a mommy person to be there. And I guess I felt needed and wanted.
But Eva, still grieving the loss of her mom, says she neither wanted nor needed a stepmom, especially one so close to her in age.
The age difference between me and Ashley is 8 years. Anytime I hung out with her and we were shopping downtown, we would get mistaken as sisters.
How did you get along with Eva?
I think things didn't start off well because she didn't really find out until after we were married. It was like, oh yeah, Eva, this is my new wife. And it didn't go over well.
I will just say this, he messed up. He messed up by jumping in to a relationship and not inviting his daughter into it. That's, I think, a huge mistake.
My dad seemed very excited and happy, and I also understood that he was grieving differently than me.
Ashley and Doug are moving full steam ahead. They don't just want a romantic partnership, they want to be business partners.
It seemed like we found something, once again, that we were both equally passionate about, so we just hit the ground running.
But what Ashley and Doug don't realize is that both the romance and the business will soon self-destruct.
You can't make promises and not live up to them.
Like, what's going on? People were mad.
I found out that it was all a masquerade.
My name is Sarah Moraski. When I was a young girl, I saw a performance of the Nutcracker, and I fell in love with it right away. I knew right in that moment that's what I wanted to do with my life.
After years of sacrifice and dedication, Sarah finally gets her big break. She's cast in the Pennsylvania Ballet's production of The Nutcracker, in the lead role, the Sugar Plum Fairy.
It was like it was a fairy tale in a way. In that moment of my life, it was everything I could have dreamed up.
But Sarah says one night backstage, her dream is unexpectedly shattered. She's told that the company is going in another direction.
The director took me aside and said, "You're too tall." For me to even think that it was done was unimaginable after sacrificing my whole life for this moment, for this career. It was a few months after that that I received a message online from Ashley Benefield.
Ashley says she and Doug were talking one night when they had the idea to start a ballet company that would include all kinds of dancers.
I was a tall dancer. I'm just a tall person, I guess. I just been talking about how there were things in the ballet world that I didn't think were right, and that, well, you know, if it was up to me, I would do it differently. And he was like, well, why don't we do it?
Ashley called me. We spoke. I remember her saying things like, I want to make a change for ballet. I want ballet to be able to show its beauty in the best way with all different kinds of dancers.
The concept was diversity. I trained with beautiful dancers of all shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds, you name it, and I watched them have a hard time getting a job. I was frustrated by that.
You came up with the name for it, American National Ballet.
Yep.
So he was going to handle the business part, and you would be more creative.
Yep. Doug had done a lot of like fundraising for different companies, for a lot of these kind of up and coming tech companies. And I remember him being like, oh, you know, tech companies and ballet, like I'm sure we can, you know, fundraise for both.
Doug sat down with me and directly asked me, I want you to work with Ashley. You know what you're doing to help get the basics of the company started.
He said they were doing a ballet company, and I'd come home from school and Ashley was in the dining room with headshots laid out, sticky notes everywhere.
When I was originally brought in, Ashley had already hired, there were 50 dancers in the company, which surprised me because when you're first starting out, that's an awful lot of money that's going out, and you don't have any money coming in yet.
That was sort of like, what's going on? It just seemed like a lot for a company that was starting out, and that maybe they were biting off more than they could chew.
Even though he doesn't have the backing yet, Doug is convinced that he can raise the money. So dozens of dancers from all over the world flock to American National Ballet with the promise of year-long contracts, state-of-the-art studio facilities, even a housing stipend for apartments in the heart of Charleston.
The idea was remarkable. The execution was a little less.
It became somewhat apparent fairly quickly that Doug was overpromising and not going to be able to deliver on all of this.
In the fall of 2017, the dancers began arriving, only to find that the promised housing stipend isn't available, and the original rehearsal space promised doesn't exist.
And then I think in like mid-October, word started to get out that the dancers weren't quite getting paid in a traditional way, that they were being paid in cash.
Doug was then pulling money from every source that he could of his own, money that he didn't have, to try to just fund this ballet.
It just got worse and worse each day. I didn't know where the company was going.
Adding to the chaos, Ashley is nowhere to be found. Not at rehearsals, not working with the dancers. She seems to have just vanished. And meantime, Doug is so financially strapped that American National Ballet ends up laying off nearly half of the recently hired dancers.
It's all fine and well to conceive of an amazing, ambitious dance company. It's great, but if you can't deliver it, somebody's going to get hurt. And the dancers, certainly in this case, are the ones who got hurt the most.
The very next day, after half the company's dancers are let go, Ashley suddenly reappears. Not in person, but in a post on social media, writing in part, "I publicly disavow my support for American National Ballet," and adding, "I'm no longer associated with this organization in any way."
I was horrified. I didn't know all of the things that were falling apart behind the scenes. I didn't see it coming. I no longer wanted to be part of it.
Ashley left the scene, and then Doug abandoned the scene. He's like, one day he just wasn't there anymore. The organization evaporated.
People were mad. People were very angry. Because losing your job in ballet is not like, okay, I'm going to go on Indeed and see what's, who's hiring. You're kind of locked out for the year until the next audition season.
American National Ballet has hurt everyone. You can't make promises and not live up to them because there are people's livelihoods that are involved. There are people's dreams that are involved.
Some fault Doug for mismanaging the ballet, and others blame Ashley for disappearing.
Ashley's absence from the ballet company was a very significant basis for the failure. She was the face of this company. When she left, the dancers, they didn't have anything.
But Ashley says there's a reason she left Charleston and the ballet behind. She claims she had to, that her very life depended on it.
He pulled the gun out and started waving it around.
I was living a nightmare. It was terrifying. It was like two different people, and I never knew which Doug I was gonna get.
In less than a year, Doug and Ashley Benefield's American National Ballet goes bust. What very few people knew, though, was that behind the scenes, the same was happening to the couple's marriage.
Doug always explained to me that the biggest factor of growing tensions at home was the conflict between Ashley and Eva.
I felt like Ashley would try and act like my mom and tell me what to do. And I was like, you were less than 10 years older than me.
Ashley says while American National Ballet is getting up and running, Doug and her arguments over Eva and the ballet become more frequent, aggressive, even scary.
He would yell and scream and cuss. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Things would be happy and okay one moment, and then the next minute he was out of control.
I never really saw a shift in their relationship, but that's also because I was trying to stay out of it as much as possible. I said, okay, if my dad's happy, I'm happy.
On June 15, 2017, Eva is out of the house when a heated argument between Doug and Ashley quickly escalates.
He pulled the gun out and started waving it around. He threw the gun at me. He said that if I left, that he was going to kill himself. I begged him not to. And then he pulled the trigger. And the bullet went into the ceiling.
At a legal hearing the couple will later attend, you can hear Doug's own voice as he describes this incident. While he doesn't deny the argument or firing his 9mm, he disputes Ashley's characterization of the fight.
You did discharge the gun into the ceiling, correct?
Yeah, I did. It was a horrible decision.
She says, he then threw the gun at me. That didn't happen, did it?
No, I did not throw the gun at her. I just kind of spun in the chair and threw it against the wall.
She says, Doug then grabbed the gun again and held it to his own head, threatening to kill myself. Did you do that?
No, I did not.
Ashley says at another point during that same argument, Doug physically abuses the family dog.
He hit Sully.
Your dog?
Sully got between us and he punched him.
At that same 2018 hearing, Doug tells a different version of this story to Ashley's attorney.
You also punched the dog the day that you discharged the firearm?
He jumped up in my lap. He's a big dog. I admit I hit him. I didn't hit him like you would, hit a punching bag or anything, but I hit him. But yes, I was probably too physical with him.
Were you beginning to rethink the marriage?
After he shot the gun in the house, that's when I really realized that I had a problem. And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what was coming next.
What comes next for the couple is a bit surprising. A celebration of marriage 9 months after their initial hasty I do's.
They had a wedding ceremony right after that. Everyone's smiling. She's smiling.
People had already booked their tickets and everyone was coming. And I didn't want them to see that part of my life. I felt like a failure. I didn't know what else to do.
Even with their turbulent marriage, Doug and Ashley decide they want to have a child together. In August, you find out you're pregnant. What do you think initially?
I was scared. It was supposed to be like a happy thing, but my heart dropped. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Here again, Doug's story differs from Ashley's.
It wasn't an accident, of course, that she got pregnant. It was planned. Doug had had a vasectomy years ago. Ashley paid with her own credit card for Doug to have a vasectomy reversal, and they then started to try to get pregnant.
One thing both sides do agree on, Ashley had a difficult pregnancy.
It was rough.
Morning sickness?
Yeah, and it wasn't even morning sickness. It was like around the clock sickness. I couldn't eat. He couldn't take care of me. And he drove me down to Florida and dropped me off at my mom's house.
Doug's life is a whirlwind. He's got his hands full in Charleston with the ballet company and raising his teen daughter, Eva. And he's spending his free time driving to Florida to be with Ashley. The two are in constant communication.
Doug was driving back and forth to take care of his family, spread it across these two states. And he had to also be back in Charleston because on September 18th, this was going to be the big launch of the American National Ballet. Ashley was not going to be able to be present for the launch, supposedly because she was so sick.
But at that very moment, what Doug doesn't know is that Ashley and her mom are driving from Florida to Charleston, not to attend the ballet launch, but for an entirely different reason. On September 18th, you decided to move your belongings out of Doug's home.
Yeah.
She wrote a note alleging some things were wrong in the house and that there had been some abuse or at least violence on his part, and that she was therefore leaving him.
Ashley writes, "Do not harass or try to follow me or I will call the police," and then goes on to say, "I will talk with you only via text, and do not call me or my mom. We will not pick up."
He was completely stunned. He had no idea Ashley was leaving him.
Just after learning that his wife is leaving him, Doug is again blindsided by a restraining order, barring him from contacting Ashley. The expectant dad then hires family attorney Stephanie Murphy to act as an intermediary.
Doug wanted to be present for the birth if Ashley felt comfortable. I sent the letter to Ashley asking, can Doug be part of the birth?
But Murphy says shortly after sending that letter, Ashley gives birth to a baby girl named Emerson, 3 weeks before her due date. Did you tell Doug?
No, there was a restraining order, so I couldn't legally have contact with him.
But he's the father of the child.
Yeah. Yep.
Did you intend for him to find out?
I mean, I knew he would eventually.
Doug didn't know that Ashley had given birth. He learned through an injunction that she filed that the child had been born, and that was several weeks after the child had been born.
Doug's not on the birth certificate. She didn't even give Doug the respect of naming his daughter Benefield. She gave the baby's last name as her grandfather's name. He was devastated. He was devastated that he missed the birth of his child and that he was not able to see her.
But Ashley says she was only doing what any mother would do. She believed that Doug was a danger, not only to her, but to her newborn daughter, too.
At first, I attributed it to morning sickness, but I started to wonder if there was more to it.
Every morning, you would make sure she drank the tea. Why? Why was that so important that she drink the tea?
It's April 2018. Ashley Benefield is a new mom, changing diapers, nursing her infant daughter. And at the same time, she's filing court papers seeking a protection order against her husband and the father of her baby, Doug Benefield.
So it would just basically put up a wall between Ashley and Doug.
It's not just that incident with the gun and the dog. Medical records suggest that she was in good health. Still, she says she had a growing suspicion that the terrible morning sickness she had wasn't just a routine part of her pregnancy. She wondered whether she was being poisoned by Doug.
It seemed like crazy and far-fetched, but I realized that the tea that he had been giving me, if I didn't drink it, he would get really mad at me. And I started to wonder if he was doing something to the tea.
She started telling me every morning he would make sure she drank the tea. Why? Why was that so important that she drink the tea?
I did some toxicology testing through hair testing.
And what did it reveal?
That I had been poisoned.
The results from the lab Ashley privately hires for her hair test show extremely high levels of heavy metals like aluminum, barium, tin. The tests on baby Emerson also detect toxic metals. So you're thinking that your husband, the man who loved you and seemed to adore you, would poison you?
Yeah.
Why?
I didn't know why.
Ashley says she became so concerned for her health that she resorted to some pretty serious measures, including more than 20 sessions inside a hyperbaric chamber like this one, along with her infant daughter. Ashley says her hope was that this high-pressure environment would help detoxify their blood. She insists that her fear that Doug had tried to poison them was real. Others call it fiction.
Doug never poisoned Ashley. Never. I read the allegations and I thought, oh my God, this is crazy.
Doug's family attorney points to those medical records during and after Ashley's pregnancy, showing her to be in good health.
The day after the baby was born, she was breastfeeding the baby. So which is it? Are you poisoned to the point that you are full of heavy metals, or are you okay and therefore you're going to breastfeed your baby? There's always been holes in the story.
A judge agrees, siding with Doug and his toxicology expert who challenged Ashley's test results. Her request to keep Doug away from her and their child is denied.
There is not a single scintilla of credible evidence that Miss Benefield has ever been poisoned.
A judge didn't believe you.
Yeah. I started to just feel like maybe I was crazy. Maybe it was all in my head.
So now Doug Benefield has moved into an apartment in Florida as the couple attempts to co-parent Emerson.
But things started to deteriorate. He was becoming very possessive and controlling again.
Doug has a tracking device put on Ashley's car, even hires a private investigator. His attorney says it wasn't unreasonable given Ashley's past allegations.
He never tried to hide the fact that he had put the tracker on the car. I think he wanted just to kind of figure out what's going on. Am I being lied to?
And then new concerns from Ashley.
She started coming home hurt. One day came back with her face very badly injured.
And what were you told?
He said that she was playing with bubbles and that she slipped and fell.
It was consistent with what happened. She fell on her face with a pacifier. Ashley, however, made another abuse allegation.
The sheriff's office and Child Protective Services investigate the claims and conclude that there are no indicators of injury or abuse.
None of these cases led to charges. The child protection team closed them without any findings, and then the sheriff's office closed them as unfounded.
Then, amidst all this tension, the Benefields make a decision that will confound everybody who knows them.
He had gotten a job in Maryland, and so we started talking about all moving.
Moving as a family to Maryland?
Not as a family, but moving, like together at the same time.
I was just stunned. I mean, and once again, Doug, what are you doing? She tried to ruin your life.
All along, Doug would tell everyone who knew him, I believe I can make this work.
How do you rationalize patching things up with a man who you think has been abusing your daughter?
He was her father. I wanted things to be as good as they could be.
But you know now that this sounds pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah. There didn't seem to be a good option.
So you're packing up. You're going to make this move. Doug comes over. Did you two begin arguing?
He was constantly going back to this idea that we had to live together, telling me that wasn't how God intended it. He just flipped out, and it just kept escalating.
Escalating, she says, to the point of no return.
When you take a good man and a woman who's manipulative at her professional level, he's not ever going to play chess with her and win.
That bedroom was empty, other than 2 handguns.
We found that suspicious.
I was extremely concerned about Ashley's safety. Ashley was about to knock down that house of cards.
I don't think he could have ever guessed what was going to happen to him.
And what happened?
I had my gun. I told him to stop. Sorry.
What led you to go for the gun?
I've never been so scared in my life.
The information that I had was that it was a domestic-related shooting. The husband was dead. The wife did the shooting, and she claimed self-defense.
Benefield's life is taking center stage at what's been dubbed the Black Swan murder trial.
Good morning, Miss Benefield.
There was always this little thought in the back of my head that said Ashley's going to do something to him.
She just said, my dad's dead, isn't he? And then she said she killed him. She killed him, didn't she?
Why would you have a loaded gun in the house and you've got a child?
There was a ticking clock. She was very, very afraid that Doug was going to take this child away from her.
This is all part of Ashley's crazy campaign to just annihilate Doug in every single way.
And starts moving his arms around. Well, show me. What was he doing?
We stand with Ashley! We stand with Ashley!
Even her own little daughter marching for her mom.
We stand with Ashley!
He told you he had killed his wife?
And he said that he could make me disappear too.
In the ballet world, it's known as the pas de deux, a duet, a step of two. For Ashley and Doug Benefield, a former ballerina and a businessman, their dance begins with a 13-day whirlwind courtship, plans to build a ballet company, and later, a baby. But the love affair turns dark and disturbing. Court battles, disputed allegations of poisoning, abuse. And in the finale, Doug and Ashley, seemingly about to reconcile and start anew, reach a sudden and tragic end. What happened in the moments before the gunshots rang out in this Florida community in September of 2020 will be scrutinized for years by investigators, by lawyers, and the media. Ashley Benefield has kept quiet about what she says happened that night until she sat down with me. How are you doing?
It depends on the moment. Just a lot of emotion, kind of like a roller coaster.
That roller coaster, Ashley says, took a sharp turn in the fall of 2020, when after 4 years of ups and downs, she and her husband, Doug, were preparing to move to Maryland. The plan, according to Ashley, was to continue living separately, just as they had in Florida.
He was constantly going back to this idea that we had to live together.
In these text messages from September 27th, the Benefields exchanged jokes, even emojis. Doug arrives at 5:30 with a U-Haul at the gated community where Ashley lives with her mom. Ashley's mom and daughter Emerson are out of the house at a nearby park. Ashley claims it isn't long before things go from friendly to fiery. Sounds like you guys are just agreeing to pack. And did you two begin arguing verbally? Was there yelling?
There was a back and forth.
She goes on to say that Doug becomes physically aggressive too, at one point bumping into her with a moving box and scraping her side. She then says she tries to diffuse the tension and asks him to leave.
He ended up trapping me, and I tried to leave. He hit me.
Where did he hit you? Did he threaten you?
He said I couldn't leave. I almost made it to the front door and he stopped me. I ran to my bedroom and he followed me there. Told him to stop. Sorry.
What led you to go for the gun?
He had never hit me before. I thought he would stop if he saw it.
What did you think was about to happen?
I thought he was actually going to kill me this time.
Did he have a gun?
Not that I could see. He told me I was done. And even though I was the one holding the gun, he plunged at me. I'm sorry.
You fired 4 times. You missed him twice. And when you hit him, what did you think?
I ran.
Ashley says she races out of her house over to a neighbor's home. 2 residents who were out walking their dog who heard the shots described seeing a woman frantically running from the home.
Maine County 911, what is the emergency?
Okay, Marie's right next door to me. She just came over. Her strange husband attacked her, and she says she shot him.
Okay, what's his name?
His name is Doug Benefield.
They said that Doug attacked me and I shot him. It was all a blur.
Did you think you had killed him?
I didn't know if he was behind me or chasing me or what. I didn't know.
I don't know. She came in. She was quite hysterical. I didn't know who was banging on my door. Said that he attacked her, and she shot him.
And at the end of that call, even though the neighbor had never seen Doug or Ashley fight, he tells the dispatcher something alarming.
Just between you and me, the son of a bitch has been harassing him and threatening him for a long time.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't say that.
When law enforcement first arrived at the house following the 911 call, and they make it in the house, they find Doug.
He had a gunshot wound to his calf through and through. He had a gunshot wound to his right side chest area that landed in his back across on the left-hand side. Paramedics arrived. They continued CPR and took him to the hospital, but he was pronounced deceased at the hospital.
This is the man that you had loved, the father of your child. What did you make of it when you heard that he was dead?
I was horrified. It's like the worst nightmare.
A nightmare Ashley won't wake up from anytime soon.
That bedroom was essentially empty, other than 2 handguns.
One of them was in a backpack, hanging in the closet. One of them was just in a bin on top of a hamper. And we found that suspicious.
I think that definitely gave the detectives pause.
There was always this little thought in the back of my head that said Ashley's gonna do something to him. Ashley's gonna sabotage him somehow. There's a look in her eyes where she just looks like she finally got her way.
I remember thinking to myself, there's something wrong here.
Every morning, Doug reached out to Eva no matter where he was in the world.
He would either text me a good morning or he would send me a Bible verse. So I expected that.
And that morning, he didn't send it.
Or I texted him like 10 times. And then I said, Dad, this is scaring me.
Monday morning, I was in the office and I saw an email that Ashley's attorney sent that we need to cancel Wednesday's hearing. Doug is dead. I had to call Doug's family. It was just heart-wrenching. The poor girl, I mean, she knew. She just said, my dad's dead, isn't he? And then she said, she killed him. She killed him, didn't she?
And I sat my phone down and I said, I don't have parents anymore. I was just shaking violently for like 6 hours.
Doug Benefield's family and friends are grappling with unthinkably tragic news. And meantime, investigators are trying to make sense of what happened the night before.
The information that I had was that it was a domestic-related shooting. The husband was dead, the wife did the shooting, and she claimed self-defense.
Ashley is taken to the sheriff's office, where attorneys from her family court case are waiting. You didn't give a statement. Why not?
My attorney is yelling to me in the parking lot. You know, don't say anything, don't say anything. I guess I was just following advice.
Ashley does consent to photos that she says document the swelling on her face where she says Doug hit her.
When I saw her that night after she left the police station, the left side of her face was swollen. She had obviously been struck. The next morning when she was changing a shirt, I saw the cut on her stomach.
But law enforcement contends that Ashley's injuries don't suggest a life or death struggle.
There was no swelling, there was no bruising, there was no difference in the way she looked. The entirety of the injuries that they found that were relevant was a scratch on her side, and that was it. They got pictures of every angle, of every place that the attorneys wanted them to take, and there were no injuries except for that scratch.
And investigators are also skeptical of Ashley's claims of being attacked because Doug was unarmed. She had access to 2 weapons. You said that you were a responsible gun owner, but why would you have a loaded gun in the house and you've got a child?
Well, the purpose of having a gun is for like a self-defense. The idea is that if something were to happen crazy in the middle of the night, that it would be accessible.
But then you've got a loaded gun that's basically sort of out in a bin. There are those who say that sounds really suspicious.
I mean, I feel like anything can be turned to try to make it look a certain way.
We found that suspicious, that someone would have 2 guns readily accessible in an empty room when everything else is in a U-Haul truck.
According to the medical examiner's report, the fatal gunshot entered the right side of Doug Benefield's chest. To investigators, that doesn't fit with somebody who's lunging toward her.
If someone were coming at you or attacking you, the entrance wound to the fatal shot would not be in the side.
And results from the forensic lab raise even more questions about Ashley's claim of self-defense.
And there was no stippling on Doug's shirt, so that told us that the barrel of the gun was at least 3 to 7 feet away, and that's the barrel of the gun, not even her body. So they were not in a combat life or death situation where they were locked together.
Just over a month after Doug Benefield is shot and killed, Ashley is charged with second-degree murder. She pleads not guilty.
The Manatee County woman charged with shooting and killing her husband.
Suspect for second-degree murder and the
You're arrested. Charged with Doug's murder. What did you think?
I was shocked. I was blindsided by it.
In the minds of investigators, Doug Benefield's demise wasn't about self-defense. To them, it was Ashley's plan all along.
The whole lie, the whole deception is coming to an end.
Doug was going to find out your wife is lying to you.
There was a ticking clock. She was very, very afraid that Doug was going to take this child away from her. Very afraid.
But others insist the real victim here is Ashley.
Doug Benefield was anything but what he portrayed himself to be.
This is someone who is a predator, and this is someone who was not going to be stopped.
He told me that he killed Renee.
He told you he had killed his wife?
And he said that he could make me disappear too.
I always try to go and sit and watch the sunset when I can. There's so many good memories there. We chose to spread my dad's ashes on station 22.5, and that is the same station that my parents met.
We held a celebration. We raised a toast, a life well lived and a terrible ending to a life.
A life Doug's family insists was cut short by a woman they say was driven to destroy him.
No one at that memorial service in any way believed the story of Doug attacking Ashley, her shooting him out of fear. Doug still loved Ashley in spite of what she did to him, in spite of all the accusations, all the allegations.
I said, why do you keep going back? And he said, you know, I just want to show her that, like, I'm a good man and men can be good. And then he wanted Emerson to have a happy family.
He was willing to do whatever he had to do to be a part of Emerson's life.
And while it appears to some that the couple were trying for yet another fresh start, their family court case in Florida was still open. Both Ashley and Doug had been evaluated by a psychologist, and that report was completed just before the planned move to Maryland. Prosecutors insist the report about Ashley is crucial, that once released, Doug was going to learn that she had no intention of reconciling.
Ashley was afraid that Doug was going to take custody away from her. This is a judge that did not believe her theatrics, and if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be this judge.
And prosecutors believe the move to Maryland offers Ashley another chance and another court to keep Doug away from her and their child.
I believed that she was going to start everything again in Maryland and hope for a different result.
Were you thinking at all, you've got another state you can try to fight him for custody?
My hope was that if something was going wrong, that maybe in a fresh place, they would take it more seriously.
Ashley's mindset leading up to the shooting, prosecutors say, is critical. Was this a woman who truly feared for her life?
Text messages between Doug and Ashley leading up to that day, in the days ahead, and then the day of the homicide were very normal.
To say that someone couldn't have been defending themselves later in a day because of nice text messages that morning is absurd. Doug was always like a flip of a switch.
He could turn on a dime. He could be very happy. He could be charming. But then, for no reason at all, he could get very upset. We kept on asking for help. It's been years of absolute hell. And we went from one abuser to a system that is abusing a victim.
Were you an abused woman?
Yeah, I didn't think so at first. I remember like trying to argue, no, like it's not like that. You know, I don't have broken bones and black eyes.
Most incidents of domestic violence are subtle, where the offender uses isolation, financial control, threatening, verbal abuse, things that the general public doesn't necessarily see. But these are also things that the victim doesn't always know is abuse.
There was no evidence to indicate that she was truly a victim of abuse in the months leading up to the homicide when they were not even living together.
In the months before the shooting, Ashley reaches out to a domestic violence agency and eventually connects with a therapist, Dr. Barbara Russell, who becomes a trusted friend and advocate.
This relationship was very controlling. He was incessantly sending her text messages saying that all of the men that are probably flirting with her need to be exterminated like rats. And then he would shift gears and talk to her very lovingly and sweetly. Like most domestic violence situations, it escalated. He would push her, he would lock her in bathrooms.
During one of those alleged incidents early in their relationship, Ashley claims Doug admitted something about his late wife that terrified her.
He had always told me that they had this fairy tale marriage, that they never fought, And then I found messages.
Text messages, she says, reveal a side of Doug that Ashley claims she saw in her own marriage.
She said one time he kicked her really hard. He had secretly videotaped them starting on their honeymoon. One time we were having an argument, and he told me that he killed Renee.
He told you he had killed his wife?
And he said that he could make me disappear too.
An investigation was done. There was no finding of foul play in any way. There was a full autopsy.
The coroner in Renee's death investigation ruled that she died of natural causes due to a heart condition.
Ashley tried to convince me that my dad killed my mom. I said, Dad, this is what she's doing. She was just kind of like, we're going to therapy where, you know, things will be okay. Obviously, like, I didn't kill your mom.
This was all part of Ashley's crazy campaign. Ashley wanted to keep Doug away from that kid at the expense of everything and everyone else. She would not stop.
Her goal was never to get rid of Doug. Her goal was to keep her daughter safe. That's very different than wanting to kill somebody.
Two starkly different portraits of Ashley Benefield. Is she a murderer?
Benefield taking center stage at what has been dubbed the Black Swan murder trial.
Or a victim who stood her ground?
He told her she was finished.
He's coming at you and you have nowhere to go. What do? You shoot to protect yourself.
A legal strategy that could keep Ashley free.
This is the one chance at this point that we have to end it all now.
We stand with Ashley, mother, daughter, sister, friend.
Here, how about I push you this way? You ready? Yeah.
So what's summer been like for you two?
Emerson does a lot of swimming, right?
Yeah, I can swim a lot. I'm pretty much.
So you're getting to be a strong swimmer.
Great job.
Ashley Benefield has spent several years under house arrest, living with her mom and daughter Emerson, who's now 5, while awaiting trial for second-degree murder.
Here we are, climbing trees, catching geckos.
This has been hanging, you know, in the balance really for years now. And in the same time, you know, you're trying to mother.
It definitely wouldn't be what I would pick, but I'm thankful for all the good things that we have. She's an amazing little girl. I love being her mommy.
Meanwhile, the other daughter, caught in the middle, 22-year-old Eva Benefield, found her own way to process her pain.
When I was 15, my mom died of an underlying heart condition.
I had been on TikTok for like a few months, and I thought, oh, that'd be funny if I made a joke about my dad being murdered. I made a TikTok, and I put my phone down, and I went to bed, and I woke up, and it was at 700,000 likes. And then it just kept going and going and going. It got like 3 million likes and like 10 million views. And within 2 weeks, I had 100,000 followers.
Eva has gone from grieving and stuck in trauma to getting help to finding an outlet in her art.
Eva, Doug's daughter, does not support you. Do you want to say anything to her?
My heart's broken for her. She has been through so much. I wouldn't even know where to start.
In February 2023, Ashley's legal team files a motion to dismiss under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. The law allows the use of deadly force if a person believes that that force is necessary to prevent imminent death or to prevent a violent crime without any expectation to retreat.
Doug stopped her from fleeing her home. Well, that would be false imprisonment, and that would qualify as a violent felony, which would give her the right to use deadly force.
Ashley's defense filed a 105-page motion presenting her version of the night she shot Doug. For his family, it was the first time hearing her side.
The story they've made up is as implausible as everything else she ever made up about Doug and their relationship. It's implausible that any of that occurred the way she and her lawyer have told it.
The court found enough merit in Ashley's motion to grant her a hearing. Now the burden of proof shifts to the state to prove that Ashley did not act in self-defense.
The prosecution has to basically put on a trial, but it's just a hearing in front of a judge.
Well, with this hearing, we have the opportunity to put a stop to the proceedings. Then I get my life back.
Doug's family travels to Florida to attend the hearing.
It feels a little weird just because the last time I was here was when my dad was alive.
All right, good morning, everyone. We are on the record in the state of Florida versus Ashley Benefield.
The state calls 8 witnesses, including Doug's family members and law enforcement, who testify that Ashley had no significant injuries to justify self-defense.
Did you have a crime scene technician take photographs of her?
We did.
And why did you want pictures?
I didn't notice any kind of injuries, things that you would typically see during a physical altercation.
For their part, the defense relied solely on the details laid out in the 105-page motion filed before the hearing, calling no witnesses.
There was no independent evidence that refuted her version of events. I believe this motion compels the court to grant it. Thank you for the court's patience.
Judge didn't rule from the bench. They typically do not. After the hearing ended, we just had to wait for a written order.
It would take 2 months, but ultimately the judge would deny Ashley Benefield's stand your ground motion, saying the state had shown the shooting was not in self-defense. Now, out of options, Benefield will have to face a jury of her peers in this courthouse.
And happening right now, potential jurors being questioned in what people are calling the Black Swan trial.
The Black Swan trial.
Black Swan murder trial.
The Black Swan has a catchy ring, and it sensationalizes my life. And it's sad to me that people who don't even know me have this idea of a monster.
But not everybody sees her that way.
We stand with Ashley.
We stand with Ashley. Dozens of protesters here at the Manatee County Courthouse marching in defense of Ashley Benefield.
And the littlest supporter marching out there also happens to be one of Ashley's biggest defenders.
She kept on asking, Mommy, can I go? Can I go? I want to be part of this. I want to stand up for my mommy. I don't want to be without my mommy. And
With Ashley Benefield now facing the possibility of life in prison, the big question is, will the jury believe her?
The entire dynamic of the trial shifting today as Ashley Benefield made her way to the stand.
The stakes for Ashley were extremely high.
I was hoping that they would call Ashley.
there's nowhere to go. I was trapped.
I really just wanted them to see Ashley for Ashley.
I thought he was going to kill me.
Testimony in the so-called Black Swan murder trial happening in Manatee County.
Supporters rallying behind Ashley Benefield. Benefield is the Manatee County woman charged with shooting and killing her husband, Doug Benefield.
After nearly 4 years, Ashley Benefield finally gets her day in court, where she's hoping to prove that she shot her husband, Doug, in self-defense.
This was a custody battle that this mother was going to win at all costs. And the cost was the life of Doug Benefield. And that is murder.
All right, state, call your first witness.
The prosecution gets to work building its case.
State calls Stephanie Murphy.
Calling Doug Benefield's family attorney to the stand.
At the time the child was born, did you or Doug know that the child was born?
No, gosh, we didn't know for a good 5 or 6 weeks after she was born.
All right, who is your next witness?
Detective Chris Gillum.
All right.
The state also calls the detective who spoke with Ashley back in 2018 when he investigated her claims that Doug had abused their daughter.
She asked for me to arrest Doug when he came inside the courtroom in front of the presiding judge.
And what was your reaction to that?
That absolutely would not occur.
And how did she take that?
She was upset.
I think it was very important testimony. It was a snapshot into the real Ashley Benefield.
Her tone turned very aggressive, and she says, "You will arrest him in front of the judge, and I will make sure you do it." And she says, "I'll do whatever I have to do to keep my baby, you a-hole."
Ashley's side insists she was only trying to protect her child from a man she was terrified of.
Defense would call Dr. Jason Quintel.
They call a mental health counselor who saw both Doug and Ashley.
Did you conclude whether there was an intimidation issue present?
Ashley stated that she was scared of Doug.
Did you reach any conclusions with respect to Douglas Benefield?
Doug occurred as someone who was domineering, and the terminology that I would use at times would be super controlling. He would fit the stereotype of an alpha male, in my opinion.
The defense also turns to a domestic violence expert to explain why, even though Ashley claimed she was living in fear, it may not have always looked that way from the outside.
How common is it, Mr. Ferris, for a victim of domestic violence to smile and act happy in the company of the abuser?
Very much so, because they're afraid. They found this least resistance. They're trying to not poke the bear, as we'll say.
Doug didn't verbally abuse her, never physically touched her. He would be angry over how she tried to ruin his life, but the anger never came out in inappropriate ways.
Then the defense calls the one person they believe can convince the jury of Ashley's innocence.
The defense calls Ashley Benefield. How are you feeling this morning, Ashley?
Nervous.
The questioning quickly turning to the night of the shooting.
I ran to try to leave the house. He hit me on the side of the head. He had never actually hit me before.
What did you do?
I ran. Doug was standing in the doorway. His face was red. Like the veins were bulging in his neck. The way he was looking at me, it didn't even look like Doug. His eyes were black. I just held the gun like in front of me, and I said, "Stop." And he like turned and he got into this like, it was like a fighting stance. I thought he was gonna kill me.
Somehow, Ashley Benefield found the strength to testify on her own behalf. And I thought she did it extremely well. Judge, I wonder, could we have a minute?
Ashley used a lot of theatrics, a lot of, in my opinion, acting. Looking her in the face, it did not seem genuine to me.
Ma'am, there's Kleenexes here next to you. Those.
Okay, thank you.
Even though she cried hysterically numerous times, there was not one tear.
In her cross-examination, prosecutor Suzanne O'Donnell presses Ashley about that moment she says Doug hit her in the head.
You say he slapped you?
I wouldn't know how to classify it. He struck me, he hit me.
Was his hand open or closed?
I don't remember.
Okay. In direct examination, she knew the color of his eyes and the way he was acting. And when I asked her, did he hit you with an open hand or a closed hand, she didn't know. Wouldn't you know if someone hit you with a fist versus an open hand? Judge, if I could have her step down so she can demonstrate.
You may.
I absolutely wanted to get her down off of the stand because she would have been that much closer to the jury. Okay, so he's standing there. He turns to like this and starts moving his arms around. Like that. Well, show me. What was he doing?
Kind of like, I remember he got like this, and he was like making like fighting motions. I don't know, I'm not a fighter, I don't know.
Okay. This was the time to show the jury exactly what this person was doing. Why were you so scared? And she just couldn't do it. And I believe that that was because it didn't really happen.
And O'Donnell zeroes in on the physical evidence, arguing that it contradicts Ashley's claims of self-defense.
So I want to talk a little bit about this trajectory. The fatal bullet went in the side of the chest and almost came out the other side of the back. Her story was he starts to lunge at her. If she then lifted the gun and shot, it would go in his chest and right out his back. It would not go side to side.
Everybody unanimously agreed that the wound path of that projectile was from front to back, left to right. Well, I don't care how much you would like to move front to back to the side, it is still front to back. Ashley's action on that day was absolutely justified. She had the right to stand her ground and use force, including deadly force. For the last several years, I've walked hand in hand with Ashley. I'm now going to surrender her fate to you.
So all of you may now retire to consider your verdict.
Any minute now, Ashley Benefield could learn her fate.
I've played out, I guess, both scenarios in my mind.
6 hours into the deliberations, tensions began building in the jury room.
Then at approximately 10 o'clock, the jurors sent out a note.
When they came back, I feel a sinking feeling. We were heavy-hearted at that moment.
Are you envisioning what it might be like to hear guilty?
Yeah, I've played out, I guess, both scenarios in my mind. I mean, part of this just doesn't seem real. I keep thinking maybe one day I'll wake up from the nightmare and realize that none of this happened.
Jurors still deliberating after closing arguments.
It's 10 p.m. The jury in Ashley Benefield's case has been deliberating for 6 hours. Then, a message from the foreperson.
I've received a note from you. It says, unable to come to unanimous verdict.
Even worse than a not guilty would be a hung jury, because then the family has to go through this again. We just need some finality.
But the judge encourages the jurors to keep deliberating and try to come to a consensus.
We'll be in recess until we get another question or a verdict.
And less than an hour later...
Breaking news, we have a verdict.
When I saw that there was a verdict a half an hour later, my heart was in my throat.
We, the jury, find the defendant is guilty of manslaughter, a lesser included offense.
The jury does not find Ashley guilty of second-degree murder. Instead, they convict her of the lesser charge of manslaughter.
We were hopeful for a second-degree murder conviction, but we were very, very satisfied with a manslaughter conviction.
Ashley learns she'll be sentenced at a later date.
The sound was as good as the sight. We're very thankful that she was taken off to jail.
If she hadn't had her gun that night, I know without a shadow of a doubt my daughter would be dead. I am sure of it. Why do they not believe women? Why should women live in fear?
I feel that Ashley was abusing a system that is designed to help people that are victims. Sets everyone back and makes it so much harder for those people that really are victims.
But I'll tell you, the hardest part of that verdict was not in the courtroom. It was when we came back to our office without Ashley. Emerson was there waiting for her mom, but she wouldn't leave right around that elevator. She just stayed there.
This case has always been sad to me because there are children involved that had nothing to do with this. Emerson's without her father and probably going to be without her mother now for a long time. Doug's family got justice, Eva's still without her father.
Today kind of just feels like the first day of the rest of my life.
I hope one day me and Emerson will be able to have a relationship where she can come to me with any questions, and I hope that one day I'll be able to explain how great of a father my dad would have been to her and how great he was for the short amount of time that they got to spend together.
Ashley Benefield is scheduled to be sentenced next month. David, she faces up to 30 years in prison.
And as for Doug and Ashley's 6-year-old daughter, Emerson, she's currently living with Ashley's mother now. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC